Hello and welcome to the Cinema Savvy Movie Podcast, the channel for film reviews, discussions and everything in between. I'm Chris Garner, joined with my co-host George Aldridge, and today for our latest episode of Film Club, we're going to be reviewing Ryan Coogler's 2013 drama, Fruitvale Station. How Film Clubs works is that each week we recommend a movie at the end of our main show that ties in with our review from that show. This week was obviously the dreaded Fantastic Four, or Fant4stic, and George, it was your turn to pick a movie this week, so just give us a couple of reasons, or the reason you picked Fruitvale Station.
I think the main reason is that it's a film I wanted to see, but it also had Michael B. Jordan in, and I liked him in Chronicle. I know everyone had said this is his best performance, this is amazing. Obviously, it's got a few Sundance things, and it was more or less that I was so sick and fed up of Fantastic Four talk. I just wanted to see something decent that he'd been in, and it's another good film, which we'll go into now.
Yeah, and this was a film that I really hadn't heard many people talk about until quite recently, actually, and obviously Creed's coming out later this year, which is one of my most anticipated films of the year. This is the same director who's going to be moving on to that. This was his first feature film. As he said, like, he'd taken it to Sundance. It won a few awards like surrounding those areas, like film shows and stuff like that. So I was interested to definitely watch it when you picked it. Obviously, I had to watch it for the show, but it was one of them that was always on my list of ones to get round to, and I'm glad we did. It's a really nice, sort of a small scale film, but I think that, like, when this movie hits, especially in the ending, it's probably one of the most poignant films I've seen in a long time. And like, as soon as the credits finished rolling, I just kind of stared blankly at the screen and was like, I need to watch something happy now after this, because it's not a cheery movie, but
No, and I think the fact that it's a real life story,
yeah.
when it hits the ending, it's far worse when you think of it in your head, and there's the opening scene, and it's one of them films where it was good to watch it to get a sense of the knowledge, but also the actual case and looking into the history of everything that happened afterwards. It's one of them where, a lot of stuff happened, and it just sums up the attitude of Americans.
And for anyone listening to this who hasn't seen Fruitvale Station, sort of what it's about, it's based on the true life events of the death of Oscar Grant, who was killed in 2009 by a BART police officer in Fruitvale Station in California. And the film starts off with an actual recording of the incident where he got shot, and taken from a mobile phone of like a passerby on the at the station. And ignorant me, like, I knew nothing of like the true events of this film or anything like that. I didn't know, to be honest, I didn't even know what the film was about. Like, I hadn't seen any trailers, any information about it. It was literally just I had a name to go on, and I got hold of it, I watched it, and from that opening shot I was like, it's gonna be one of these kind of films. Like, I'm not gonna come out of this film with dry eyes. And it is really hard to watch, but it's a self-contained movie. It's very small, and it's a very nice, just sort of personal movie about this one guy, and you see, his ups and his downs. He's trying to we get the hints that he's had a life of crime before, and he's trying to better himself. He's trying to be a better boyfriend to his girlfriend. Be a better father to his daughter, and be a better son to his mother. And you see his growth to this, and then that makes it all the more tragic when you get to those final shots when he's on the train, because obviously it's coming. If you know the true life events, the film starts off with that, so every moment that the film goes by, it's leading up to that ending, and it's just gonna be an emotional gut punch at the end.
Yeah, and which is, I mean, one of the things I liked about this film is that they talk about the past of the prison stuff. But what I like is that they're not afraid to show clearly one of his nastier sides. So what I really like is the scene in the shop where he's helping out the woman. Then you kind of find out that he got sacked and he might not have been great. And then he kind of switches his tone, says, "Oh, you got a problem," to his boss, and he's getting very, very nasty very quickly. But then he kind of calms down. And I like the fact that, because we know that he's a good person inside, but they'll show these clips, just, I think, so it's not like a whitewash of this is how amazing he is. I mean, it's hard to speak about it because obviously we don't know the full thing, but by showing some negatives, it makes it all the more believable because every human being's like that. But I like the fact that the whole thing revolves around the final 24 hours with two flashbacks to when he was a bit younger.
Yeah, and with the flashback again, like, I knew nothing of the actual character, but like when the film starts off with the actual footage, like most of these sort of like biopics or like historical like events in history, these movies, you can always say, oh well, maybe that's not completely accurate. Maybe they're trying to show more sympathy in this area, or they've like withheld information, and it's a film, so we're just going to take it at face value and not read into it. But by showing that thing at the start, I think this gives this film more than any other film I've seen in this kind of vein. It gives it more credibility, and you could tell this was definitely probably a passion project for the director, wanted to make it, and all the cast as well. Like obviously you've got Michael B. Jordan in the starring role. I've only seen him in. I think I've seen him in Chronicle, and obviously I've seen him in Fantastic Four. He looks like he's going to absolutely knock it out of the park in Creed. But this, you really get the sense of like what a truly great actor he is. It's a really nice character piece, and he just gets lost in this character. Like you go through, there's moments where he's with his daughter, and it's really heartfelt stuff like that. And then you see all the problems he's going through, like life getting in the way. Um, so it's making me really actually look forward to Creed coming out later this year with the director, because I think that the style from this movie is definitely going to play a lot into Creed. I think it's going to be a much more emotional film, like similar to how Rocky Balboa was. So it's going to follow on in that vein, and we've seen that he can do a character piece now, and from like a troubled neighborhood, troubled background, stuff like that. I think if they do go that route, and it looks like they might do with sort of the estranged son of Apollo Creed, I think he's definitely the right director to do it, and I think that Michael B. Jordan's the perfect actor for it as well.
Yeah, and I think especially after seeing this, I mean, Ryan Coogler, the director, he's very young. I think he was 27 when this came out. I mean,
Mm.
that's incredibly young, especially for an indie type film anyway. And you're looking into it, he's also black, and it's very rare you get black directors. So I like the fact that they've had a successful film, and he's now moving on. The studio's given him a project because it doesn't matter how young you are. If you can make a good film, then you can make a good film. Now he's got a bit more of a budget and the help of Stallone producing, starring, stuff like that. I think his director, he's got a very good shot of getting big. Especially, okay, you can talk about Josh Trank, but that's a completely different story in itself. And I think Rocky's got too much going for it. And that trailer where Michael B. Jordan looks absolutely fantastic in it,
Mm.
and it really looks like that he's kind of capturing the essence. Me and you spoke before the podcast where the first Rocky, as much as it's a boxing film, it's a drama at home, and I
Mm.
think that's what Creed looks like it's doing. Unlike Rocky 2, 3, and 4, which are all boxing, whereas again the fifth one cuts to the drama with a bit of boxing. I think that's what works in its favour. But it's one of them where going into this film is also another expectation for Creed. But I think going back to this film, the whole of the supporting cast as well. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
there's not many names, but however, Octavia Spencer, who's been in a lot of big films, and I think she was touted to be in Suicide Squad. She's kind of playing the mum, and she has this performance where she's only in it for say 3 scenes, but in every single scene she's so noticeable. In two of them, she's by far the best thing that happens. But there's the prison scene, which has got such good acting by her and Michael B. Jordan together. It's incredible.
And she's one of those actresses, I know I've seen her in something else before, and I cannot place for the life of me what I've seen her in before this film. But yeah, she was my favourite performance in this film, right next to Michael B. Jordan. She's your classic sort of matriarch of the family, and those moments where he's been shot on the station, and his girlfriend, Sofina Messer in the film, she's played by Melanie Diaz. She's sort of like running around the station, not knowing what's gone on, trying to get information, trying to get there, and the police are holding her back. And then when she calls the mum's sort of, you can tell that it's like really hit her hard, but she tries to remain strong. And you're right, those bits in the hospital at the end where they're waiting on news from the doctors as they're operating on him, and the camera sort of cuts as they're sitting outside, and you see them like keep switching out the blood transfusion bags, and you obviously know how it's going to end, but it's her sort of faith that she has, and she all gathers them around and says like, we've got to lift him up, we've got to pray for him, stuff like that. And it's that bit at the end where she sees his body and she says, "Can I go and hug him?" Because earlier in the film, when it flashes back, shows one of the times she visited her son in prison. she sort of left. They came to a misunderstanding at the end, and he was saying like, "Don't go away without a hug, Mum. Like, give me a hug." And she just stormed out, and it's heartbreaking. It really tugs at your heartstrings at the end.
And I think another thing, the whole thing based off the reality of it is, the mum's birthday is New Year's Eve.
Mm,
So the fact that the whole thing happens on New Year's Day, but also when she's at the hospital, she's blaming herself, and everyone knows it's not her fault, but she's the only way she can see is hers because she told him to catch the train. And it's
mm,
when then the whole film is a tragedy in itself, just everything that happened, and when it leads up to that moment, I think it makes it worse. The fact that it follows him in a day rather than over a few years, it kind of gives you a sense of everything that's happening. That he's a really nice bloke. There's the scene with when his girlfriend needs to go to the toilet. He's chatting with the guy, then he's chatting to the pregnant woman's partner. Then he's kind
mm.
of joking around with the shop owner, and you get a sense to it. Goes, he's got a past behind him, but he's clearly going out for the future, and he's a nice person. I mean, some of it might have been put in for a film, but I believe the whole supermarket scenes with the lady who was helping, I think all of that could be genuine because I don't think they could get away with sort of lying.
Yeah, and I forgot what he calls his grandma, but it's where he calls his grandma up because this girl at the checkouts wanting to cook fish. She doesn't know what she's buying. She doesn't know how to cook it, and he calls up his grandma and like passes the phone over and says, talk to my grandma. She'll put you right. And you brought up the bit where his girlfriend needs to use the toilet, so they ask the store owner if they can go in, and those other two people come by. I don't know if you got this impression as well, because this was your first time seeing the movie as well, wasn't it? I just got like a real like uneasy sense from that guy when he first approached. Like I thought they were gonna like sneak in and like rob the store or something. Like he
Yeah,
seemed really shifty. I don't know if that was intentional or not. Like to sort of lull the viewer into a false sense of security, but like nothing ever comes of it. He's completely fine and he's like friendly at the end, but all the time, like when he just sort of last minute like says, "Oh, can we?" Can my wife use the toilet as well? And he's like standing outside and he sort of looks anxious. He's like glancing at his watch, stuff like that. I thought something's going to kick off here, but it doesn't.
yeah, and that was another thing because I thought, oh, is this going to have anything to do with the shooting? Because I knew the background with the police and it was murder and stuff. I didn't know the actual whole train bit, and I thought it was interesting the fight on the train. I haven't searched to see if this is real as well, but
Mm.
in the film, the fight on the train is by someone that was with
It's
him in
like a rival
prison.
gang, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's one of them where that clearly had a connection, especially when in the film it cuts to the flashback. Whether or not anything happened with that in real life, I'm sure there was. I'd be
Mm.
interested to see if anything happened after that, because the whole of the ending came from a fight on the train and the police just going after the black guys, and that's the way it was. It was kind of more of a racial stereotype arrest. I mean, you
Mm.
get that they're doing their job, but they just pull him off the train because he's black, not they look suspicious or anything. And it's one of them where the whole scene is just uncomfortable at that ending because you know what's coming out, which is the worst bit.
Mm. And it's the bit where he finally does pull the gun. Also, the guy who plays the policeman who shoots him, um, the actor I forgot his name, but if anyone listening to this watched Lost, he played a character called Keamy in it. In season 4, he cropped up a few times in season 5 and 6 as well. This actor, he always plays an absolute prick in everything I've seen him in, and he's a great actor, and the roles he picks, he completely sells those, but he's just such a hateful person in all these films he plays in. I think he was in X-Men Origins as well. I think he played
The
Blob.
Blob, yeah, that's the
Yeah.
one.
But he always plays a character like this. But this is probably his most hateful role I've seen, obviously because it's based on actual events and a real person. The bit where he pulls the gun and he shoots him, and it's basically like an execution. And I think they're telling Michael B. Jordan to roll over, aren't they? But he can't because they're sort of like on top of him and he's handcuffed and he can't move. It's after the gunshot goes off, and it's that other police officer who's like staying with him, and he's like, what the fuck did that police officer just do? And he's in shock as well.
Yeah,
But obviously, as a policeman, he wouldn't be able to say anything. He'd have to defend his, co-worker. And there's like a slight glimmer of regret from the guy who shot him. When he's like lying there and he's like coughing up blood, and he says like, "I've got a kid, I've got a daughter." There's like a moment where he's like, "I shouldn't have done that," but I don't really want to go into like the true events of the case and stuff like that, and like our thoughts on it. But they say that I think in court he said that he was reaching for his taser, but he accidentally pulled the gun and shot him. And you see the video at the start, and it really doesn't look like that. And yeah, but it's that moment with the sort of other police officers as well, where they realise what's happened, but they've got to stand by their co-worker.
Yeah, and I think just very vaguely talking about the case, it seems like one of them where, especially there's been another recent case, which I'm sure there'll be more news on, but
Mm.
that's for a different story. It seems like one of them where there's a lot of hate crimes with the police. Obviously, we don't live in America. We've never witnessed anything. We mainly see it through social network. But with
Mm.
this, it seemed like one of them where the police know they cocked up, but they don't ever punish them. I mean, he got handed first degree murder, then it was reduced to manslaughter, then it was reduced from that to
I
11
think it
month
was yeah.
sentence. And just because he stepped down from the force, there was some rubbish that they couldn't like chase him further or something. But the whole thing was a mismatch. But you're right on the cell phone bit. You clearly seem to get a gun shoot him. The police will know where their tasers are, where their guns are.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. And that like ending text crawl at the end that fades up. All like true story films kind of do this with a text screen at the end, but it really puts it into perspective when it said he just got 11 months for doing this, and then credits it, and you just sort of left with your thoughts and everything like that. It's a really heavy hitter ending, and yeah, man, this was a really hard watch when it got to the end, and the fact that this happened in 2009, so still fairly recently that this kind of stuff still happens in America. As you said, I'm sure we get cases similar over here, but we just don't hear of them as much. But when they do happen, it's like, oh, like this still goes on. Um, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I could really talk about this movie, because it is a very sort of it's a fairly short film. It runs at 85 minutes. As I said, it's a very self-contained movie, just sort of this personal story. If I'm gonna like pick like a favourite scene or like scenes that stuck with me the most, there's really two that come to mind. The first is when that dog gets run over. So if there are any dog lovers out there, like go out the room at this scene, because this scene's just heartbreaking. There's like a dog in the street, and Michael B. Jordan's character like walks up, like pets the dog, walks over the road, and then a car just like drives by, like with a gang in there. They run over the dog. You hear it like yelp, and then it's laying in the road, and he sort of picks it up, like brings it to the roadside, tries to comfort it, and like he shouts for help, and it like dies in his arms. That was a really tough scene to watch, and it's sort of in a weird way, like I don't want to read too much into it, but you could like draw parallels against that to the ending, I would
Yeah,
say. And for me, literally the last scene and the last words spoken in the movie from the daughter, where the mum gets back, she picks the daughter up, she like just sort of takes her into the shower, stands there with the water coming down, and the daughter says like, "Where's Daddy?" or something like that, and you knew that that was going to be the last line of the film. Then it cuts to black. That wow, talk about powerful endings. That's got to be up there in the top 10.
definitely. I think with that dog scene, I mean, because I'm a dog person, it's always horrible to watch
Mm,
them. And I think it kind of gives the character perspective where he's trying all he can. He's genuinely upset, although he's just met it. And it's one of them where it very very vaguely foreshadows that ending, but that generally might have happened. But
mm,
it's just one of them films where I think to watch it, it's an eye opener into some real stuff. I mean, as much as we like our massive blockbuster films or our intricate indies, it's nice to see it. Not nice, but it's to see a small scale real film like this. It's
mm.
always a parallel change, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and just sort of you kind of give your thoughts there, but just to tie up, would you recommend Fruitvale Station to anyone who hasn't seen it before or anything like that?
Yeah, I think it's a film that a lot of people should watch,
Mm,
especially when you're talking about modern times and the sort of social state in the places. I think it's a very well made film too, but it is one that I think a lot of people should watch because I'd heard good things, but I didn't think it'd be as good as it was.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that, and I'm definitely glad I have watched it because you said that it's an eye opener film, and it totally is. Like I had never heard of this case or the story of this, so literally as soon as the film finished, I went on Wikipedia, bought up the article and just like read through it to get more insight into it and stuff, and it's definitely something everyone should watch. I don't know if it's a film that you could go back multiple viewings on because, as I said, it is incredibly hard to watch and it's not the most cheeriest of films. So don't go in expecting like a fun time at this movie, but it's a really, really nice drama. And the thing is with indies, like I've always sort of been a film snob regarding them. Like I always seem to turn my nose up at them. Like I go, oh, that's an indie film. Like it's bad of me, but it's almost like that's not good enough to get on the big screen, wide release stuff like that. So I don't tend to watch as many as I probably should, but it's times like this where you do go and watch one of these smaller scale movies, and it is so good and like so personal and well acted, beautifully directed, stuff like that. Where I think I should give these kind of films more attention now, and it's definitely one that I think everyone should see at least once.
Yes, definitely.
But yeah, I think we've talked as much as we can on this film. Really, I know this is probably one of our shortest film club reviews, but it is a very short movie itself, but definitely one we'd recommend. So let us know in the comments. Have you seen Fruitvale Station? What did you think of it? Are you looking forward to Creed, directed by Ryan Coogler? Do you think he'll sort of take the series in a new direction or rejuvenate the Rocky franchise? Let us know. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/cinemasavvy. You can find us on Twitter at cinema_savvy, and we're also on letterbox.com/cinema_savvy as well. So, rate, like, comment, subscribe, get involved. We're going to be bringing you loads more reviews in the upcoming weeks. As we're sort of moving out the summer season now, so probably reviews in terms of new releases will slow down a bit, but we're still going to be bringing you our top 10 lists and any other reviews we can think of, and we'll get those out to you. So until then, thank you very much for listening.